the first to know Nsem-Pii TV.
And Paul Adom Ochre time I tell him and say time I hosti Good Evening Ghana and Felix Ofosu Kwakye ono etimi John Dramani Mahama Kasamafo Ekokoshia ewo Good Morning Ghana nana enye asem kotwa nyina asem Felix Ofosu Kwakye ede kokotu dwa ho se sisi de Good Evening Ghana no come here say aye NPP show and how our Paul ACB running show no or running show ne basa e ma akwa akodu se Paul create me kosesa no ma basa bi o Facebook no aba be ne propaganda e wo Good Evening Ghana de atro manfo no a kire se sisi Paul adane NPP communicator na after say ono ekasa ewie no ene Paul Adom Ochre so am fans fair no eyade se ene utimi eyiyi bi edema Felix Ofosu Kwakye pa ana enye asem koto ana de yenkonkoti wa bra na conversation no ekoso.
I used to him on a Good Morning, Good Evening Ghana.
Yes.
Except that these days, I don't know what Good Evening Ghana is anymore. But what is it?
I'm not seeing it.
Looks more like it looks more like an MPP satirical show these days than the top and leading current affairs program that we had decades ago.
This is
Paul will have to explain.
No, that's fine. That's the opinion that you have.
Paul, it's my opinion. You know, I'm an ardent. When I started politics actively, I was an active listener, and even if I disagreed with your positions on some issues, I respected the.
Well, as far as we are concerned, our ratings are better now.
No, amongst MPP supporters.
No, in general.
Amongst MPP supporters. Trust me. Amongst MPP supporters.
No, you can. No.
What you do on Good Evening Ghana these days cannot pass for the credible leading current affairs program on TV.
Why? Why do you say?
Because what it has become, an MPP.
I'd like to respond to some of the
it has become. No problem. That one you have opportunity. But
so these are Good Evening.
These are plenary comments.
Yes, please.
Okay.
By nature, I am liberal in my thinking. So I am able to disagree with people and still respect what they stand for. So that Paul is MPP has always been known. It's not something that has not been known. But we still have respected the platform that he had on Good Evening Ghana, where leading figures, newsmakers, luminaries in society, everybody who matter, anybody who was anybody in this our socio-cultural setting, appeared to discuss important national matters. Then before long, especially when President Akufo-Addo rose to power, suddenly the thing has become an MPP outlet, where bizarre, sometimes outrageous propaganda is churned out. I mean, these days, he will go and pick Facebook posts of MPP propaganda and come and brandish it as fact. You know, and if you are not lucky, you will be dressed down on that show without any opportunity to even respond. So clearly, it is not what it used to be. Understand me? And it has nothing to do with the fact that he is MPP. Let me place that on record. The MPP is not a secret cult if you belong to the party. And it's also okay that now he has actually closed the loop and is now representing them on TV. Great. Okay. But he certainly must do something about Good Evening Ghana if he wants to go back to the period where it was a highly respectable. Currently, it is not. And surely, it cannot be a program that is enjoying great ratings. It is not. Great ratings amongst MPP supporters. Fine. Why? Why not? If you have an outlet on TV, prime time on TV, you watch it as an MPP supporter. Okay. So I think that we should watch it carefully. Otherwise, it's a huge loss to your station, I must indicate, because people really tuned in. I watched it. Yes, but I watched it religiously because the quality of the discussion there was great. I mean, the likes of the late Akutu will come in, and you will disagree, but you will respect the cadence. You will respect the authority that he brought. These days, that is not the case. There's some MPP propagandists, one-sided narratives. You know,
well, I mean, programs evolve, don't they?
But it has evolved. It has evolved in the wrong direction, to be honest with you.
Okay, I mean, that's like you said. It says that's your opinion, so that's fine.
Of course, but it's an opinion that I'm sure many people will say.
Okay,
many people.
That the short documentaries that we put together about political events in Ghana is particularly gratifying to them. Many people call us from across the world all the time. We don't have other ways of measuring the program except the viewership that DSTV will report and also what Facebook is reporting and what YouTube is reporting. If we put all this data together, we see that we have a tremendous following. The minister would like to caution us that that following may be numbers, but it may not be part of the critical mass. If that is so, we take it as feedback. But we will continue to present our show in the way that we do it in a very feisty way. The other point that we have made all the time is that no politician, whether you are on the left or on the right, is prevented tacitly, overtly, or covertly from attending Good Evening Ghana. If any politician, whether it's NDC or NPP, wants to attend Good Evening Ghana, the door is open for anyone to attend. In the critical mass part of the election, Mustafa Bande, who is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, called and wanted to find out whether I host NDC people on the show. And I said, well, he was criticizing that. You don't host NDC people, only one side. I said, oh, my brother, you can come. And he came, and we had an interview. On that interview, he was very critical of MPP, and I hosted him. There was another time that I had a small conversation in terms of a political quarrel with unfortunately he passed, Mutala. And then I discussed it on TV. Then I traveled. I think Annie was hosting the show. They called me and said, look, Mutala wants to come. I said, oh, but of course, he should come. He came on the show, and he had opportunity to express himself. So there's no issue about somebody cannot come. Any politician who wants to come. I'm delighted to grant Felix an interview on Good Evening Ghana. He can say all that he wants to say. But we believe that we have held up onto the political history of this country with data facts in a way that not many television programs have in their repertoire. If we go to our internet terabyte space, the amount of shared documentaries that we have on the political history of Ghana, we have analyzed almost everything, including the life of important people. When we did the Kojo Chikata documentary when he passed, we got a lot of plaudits from people who are his family people in the Volta region, who were very happy about the way we put the documentary together. So what the minister is saying about Good Evening Ghana is feedback. We believe that we're on the right path, but if anyone says that you are not on the right path, it's something that we will consider all the time, especially coming from an important person like a member of parliament and a minister who describes himself as a former viewer. I mean, we take that as some work that we need to do. So hopefully, Minister, we will take your feedback, and we believe that by the time we meet again, you will be back watching Good Evening Ghana. We are happy to have you watching Good Evening Ghana. Now, the other point he made, which I think was valid, was going through the political situation that had occasioned the MPP's heavy election defeat at the polls in 2024. The point that is often overlooked in that conversation, and we made that point at the time, 2021, 2022, was that Akufo-Addo did not run a government for 8 years, for 4 years. He ran a government for 4 years. And in 2020, he went to seek the people's mandate. Now, if you look at the conversations of the 2020 election, in terms of the contest that occurred and what were the main issues of the contest, these ran down the economy issues were not part of the 2020 conversation. It was a part of the conversation that began in 2021, 2022, when the economy took a major hit. Now, I'll give you a few facts. For instance, if you look at the economy from the growth of Ghana's economy in 2018, surged to 8.1, 2018, 8.1 GDP. Okay, it was said to be one of the highest in the world. And then it plummeted to 0.4 in 2020 as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But some people may disagree, fair enough. The education, the government's investment in education between 2013 and 2016 was 20.7 billion Ghana cedis. Education investment, the John Mahama period, 2013 to 2016. That figure doubled between 2017 and 2020 to 40.4 billion. Now, if you look at one of the key indicators, which is inflation, for instance, or even the depreciation of the cedi, which is a very important conversation. Now, the depreciation of the cedi was 28.38% between 2017 and 2020. And that was a better performance from the previous 4 years of a 52% depreciation of the cedi, 52.65% depreciation of the cedi in 2013 to 2017. And Akufo-Addo in the ensuing 4 years went to 28.38. So clearly, as we say in football, when the game is different, a game of two halves. The Akufo-Addo administration was clearly a game of two halves. The 2021 to 2024 did not have any resemblance at all to 2017 to 2020. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes people will disagree with the reason. But he says Akufo-Addo's performance in that period was the worst in the political history of Ghana. He may say so, but he also has to recognize that Akufo-Addo's government endured the worst global catastrophe in the history of Ghana. It was Akufo-Addo's government. That was the government in charge. At the time, the worst global catastrophe never happened since the Second World War, occurred across the world. Every government in the world took a major hit of this situation. So it may be true that human failings were part of it. It may be true that the optics of the NPP administration were a big part of it. It may be true. It may be true that reports of a Cecilia Dapa, $1 million, was a major part of it. It may be true that Akufo-Addo's published relationship with traditional authority may be a big part of it. All of that is a big part of it. But the fundamental core of the matter is that the Akufo-Addo performance of 2017 to 2020 is significantly different from the performance of 2021. That can only be explained by the pandemic. Sometime this week, I saw a news flash about President Mahama referring to the pandemic and how the pandemic had cost African countries and speaking to the United Nations and urging the United Nations to recognize that African countries had been hit harder by the pandemic than other countries. So it's a conversation that we can have. But it is when that conversation is had, whilst the blame must go on the NPP politicians, they can take a lot of blame for the NPP's defeat, division in the party, lack of unity, bad optics, appearance of corruption. All of that is a big part of the conversation. But the core issues are these, that this is a government that did not do only 4 years. It did 8 years and went into an election in 2020. And if you Google the issues for election in 2020, you will not find those inflation, the economic indicators among the issues that were fought in the 2020 election. Indeed, one of the big issues of the 2020 election for the NDC was the restoration and regulation of Okada issues. It was a major issue for the NDC in 2020's election. NDC did not win the election, and they came to another election. It was not a major part of the 2024 election because they didn't need it. NDC in 2024's election did not need to rehash the Okada situation and present it as an alternative to government because they had more than enough. They had the appearance of corruption. They had an economy that had been ravaged by COVID and the Russian-Ukraine war. They had prices that were soaring above. They had a free SHS that had opened the doors to so many people that the government infrastructure was not ready to contain it, and therefore developed a minor problem out of which the government tried to solve with a double track system, which many parents were concerned about because it was novel. What is this double track system? They didn't quite get it. And the government was its own enemy in this regard, because if Akufo-Addo did not set out free SHS so that many more Ghanaians who couldn't afford can now afford and have entitlement to go to schools. And we have seen the first the placement systems under the NDC of last 2 weeks. I think we are still in it. And we've seen what has happened. And we can remember 2-3 years ago whether we heard some of these stories. And we know that we didn't hear these stories about postings being done in a certain way. We didn't hear those stories. But now we are hearing those stories. Fair enough. We all have to support the government to succeed because it's about education. Education is not something you politicize, that they are better, we are better. Let's all help the government to succeed. But Akufo-Addo's education policy, his vision to have every Ghanaian educated, because he saw that when the East Asian tigers rose up in the late 80s to the early 90s, and he's seen it with China and Japan, and he's seen it with all of those countries who did not win the Second World War, but who have now risen to economic heights across the world. Education was fundamental. The literacy rate was very fundamental. And if you look at Ghana's history, you go back to the Nkrumah era. Ghana was Ghana because our literacy rates and our education policy was fundamental. Nkrumah decided that to unite the country, he was going to allow free education in the northern sector of the country. This was a Ghana at the time who had a strong GDP, did not have a significant debt to GDP ratio, a Ghana that had inherited so much money from British colonial authority, a Ghana that was on track, and a Ghana that was with a 6 million population that was to manage. The Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, one of the greatest visionaries we have had and we may ever have, decided in his wisdom that he wanted to limit free SHS to the northern, free secondary education, to the northern territories of Ghana. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo rises up 60 years later and decides that if 60 years ago, Nkrumah did free education limited to the north, we must, as a country at this time, the proud star of Africa, open up free SHS to the entire country, which was a huge budget. He did. And it was going to create all these logistics problems. What happened? Kenya And Rwanda, Paul Kagame is thought about as one of the finest African leaders. Paul Kagame came to learn at the feet of Akufo-Addo and NPP government and has implemented free SHS. Uhuru Kenyatta, who is also one of the political, historicity political of Africa, because his father was the founder of Kenya, or the first president of Kenya. Uhuru Kenyatta came to learn free SHS, and hopefully many other African countries will pilot it, because this is a fundamental policy that will be necessary, consequential to the fortunes of Africa going forward. However, this same policy then brought up in the first year 100,000 more people. This is Ghana, developing country. We have many other responsibilities, roads, this, that. And then in education, you suddenly find yourself doing this. And then I went to Presec. When I was living in Presec, there were 6 houses. It remained 6 houses for a very long time. Then it became 8. Go to Presec today and see what free SHS has done in terms of how many houses government has constructed. During the MPP campaign, there was concern among some of the MPP people that the NDC were talking about how many schools have been built during the John Mahama era, and Felix is quite adept at that analysis. And that when you talk about how many schools that have been built, in the eyes of the Ghanaian or in the eyes of the voter, you are looking at the quantitative, and that is easier and faster to sell than the qualitative in that regard. We have had, as MPP, as the person was saying, has had so many schools being expanded with sheer numbers. If we had used that money to build another school, perhaps in terms of the quantitative conversation, you could have matched the NDC that they said, we've built 38 schools, we have built 75. But NDC says, I've built 38 schools. Are you going to say that I've expanded Presec, I've expanded Accra Academy, I've expanded this, I've expanded that? Now, the reason why the Akufo-Addo government did that was that Ghana had come over a long way, where schools have now been divided into first-class schools and second-class schools and all of that, as a result of support from sometimes old students and all of those things. So we have had this situation of some schools are better or seem better than others and prepare students better. Akufo-Addo didn't like that. He really wanted to equalize the situation. So if you are Presec and the standards of Presec are good, government wanted Presec to have more people so that more people will come out with the Presec standard. Government wanted Wesley Girls to have more people so that more young people will come out with the Wesley Girls standard. Now, in the second half of that conversation, what the Honorable Minister Osei Aduchum began to do was to take a Presec headmaster and take him to another school and see whether we can foster the culture of Presec in another school. That is why today, the school they call Manfi Wesley Girls, but it's actually a Manfi Presbyterian Girls School, is being looked at as one of the top schools. Keta Secondary School is being looked at as one of the top schools because it was a model that was actually borrowed from colonial times. The people who go to Prempeh College, the people in Adisadel tease them that they are the Adisadel of the Ashanti region, because a headmaster was taken from Adisadel to go and set up Prempeh College and make it look like Adisadel. So this was the policy that perhaps created a problem. Okay. And the fundamental thing we need to point out is that the Akufo-Addo administration did not run from 2021 to 2024. It started from 2017, and its performance from 2017 until COVID was actually sterling.
Do you then agree with Dabi Asare Oshidako, who is of the opinion that
where bizarre, sometimes outrageous propaganda is churned out? I mean, these days, he will go and pick Facebook posts of MPP propaganda and come and brandish it as fact. You know, and if you are not lucky, you will be dressed down on that show without any opportunity to even respond. So clearly, it is not what it used to be. Understand me? And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's MPP. Let me place that on record. The MPP is not a secret cult if you belong to the party. And it's also okay that now he has actually closed the loop and is now representing them on TV. Great. Okay. But he certainly must do something about Good Evening Ghana if he wants to go back to the period where it was a highly respectable. Currently, it is not. And surely, it cannot be a program that is enjoying great ratings. It is not. Great ratings amongst MPP supporters. Fine. Why? Why not? If you have an outlet on TV, prime time on TV, you watch it as an MPP supporter. Okay. So I think that you should watch it carefully. Otherwise, it's a huge loss to your station, I must indicate, because people really tuned in. I watched it religiously because the quality of the discussion there was great. I mean, the likes of the late Akutu Osei will come in, and you will disagree, but you will respect the cadence. You will respect the authority that he brought. These days, that is not the case. There's MPP propagandists, one-sided, narratives. You know,
Well, it's. I mean, programs evolve, don't they?
but it has evolved.
We'll take-
It has evolved in the wrong direction. To be honest with you.
Okay, I mean,
it has
that's,
evolved in the wrong
like you said,
direction.
it says that's your opinion, so that's fine.
Of course, but it's an opinion that I'm sure many people will say.
Okay.
Many
So
people will say this opinion.
we'll take
Yes.
a short break, and when I come back, I'll get to
Yeah, he has to respond to
process
that.